Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss how we can create CI/CD pipeline in Azure DevOps, right? So for creating CI/CD pipeline, CI means continuous integration and CD means continuous deployment, right? So for initiating this process in Azure DevOps, firstly we need to have these accounts in this portal, right? We need to create these two accounts. Firstly, that is your Azure DevOps. We can create a free account, and second we have Azure Portal, or we used to say Azure Cloud, right? So in this also we can create a free account, right? So why we are creating these two accounts? So let me tell you, for the Azure DevOps, that means for the maintaining your repository in this DevOps, right? So let's say we are making any changes in the code in the local, and when we want to push our code to the Azure repository, or we can say Azure repo, for that we need to use this Azure DevOps, right? So for maintaining your project repository, and Azure Portal is the place where we are actually going to deploy our application on any web server. Let's say if I'm going with Azure Portal or Azure Cloud, whatever we say, meaning is same. So let's say when we are going to host any application in Azure Portal, then we are going to deploy it in Azure App Service, right? So in just a bit I will show you. So before we proceed, I just want to let you know that what all steps we are going to perform for the creating CI/CD pipeline in Azure DevOps, right? So once we have created our account in these two platforms, firstly DevOps and then secondly your Azure Cloud Portal, then we can initiate our process. And what kind of steps we are going to perform. Firstly, we will create a simple ASP.NET Core application, right? It doesn't mean that we have to create a ASP.NET Core application. You can create any kind of application, let's say Java, Python, Node.js, ASP.NET Core application. So depending on the technology, what you want to choose, so that depends on the developer what kind of technology he is going to use, right? So for the time being, I'm going to create ASP.NET Core application in my local first, and then I will test my application in my local, and will test the functionality. If all the let's say if all the functionality is working fine, then I will push my code to the Azure repository in DevOps. So basically what I'm doing in the second step, I'm going to push my code, or we can say I'm going to commit my code from my local to the Azure repo, or we can say Azure DevOps repository, right? So once our second step is done, so that means our source code is available in this Azure DevOps platform, right? So once our code is committed to the Azure repo, later on I will show you behind the scene. If you see in the background, I'm already logged in. I'm already logged in my Azure DevOps portal, right? So in a bit I will show you. Right now I just want to tell you what steps we are going to perform in the upcoming session, right? So after pushing the code in the repository, then we will initiate the process of building pipeline for continuous integration in Azure DevOps. So this is basically for the you can say for creating your continuous integration pipeline for building your application, right? So then once our build pipeline is successfully done, then we will move to the next step. And in this step we are going to create our release pipeline, or we can say we are going to create a continuous deployment pipeline, CD pipeline, in Azure DevOps, in which we are going to basically create multiple stages. Let's say dev region, QA region, staging region, or pre-prod region, and then finally we have production region, right? So once our release pipeline is ready, then we are going to deploy our application in our Azure App Service, which is available in Azure Cloud Portal, right? That is this one, Azure Cloud. So till all these four steps we are going to perform. The first step is going to perform in local, and all these two steps we are going to perform in our Azure DevOps portal, this one. and the last step we are going to perform in our Azure Cloud Portal. So let's get started. So let's go in my local, and let's create first of all a simple ASP.NET Core application, right? So let me open Visual Studio, and I'm telling you from the scratch how we can create our ASP.NET Core application and how we can push our code to the repository by using Git, right? And how we can initiate process of CI/CD pipeline in DevOps. So let's get started. And right now you can see I'm going to create a new ASP.NET Core project, and let's say I'm going to take this one, ASP.NET Core web app with the MVC architecture, right? And now I'm clicking on the next, and now let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say hello world app, right? And now I need to define location of my project. So let's click, and let's give it a meaningful I have already created this location. Yeah, let's select this folder. So on this particular location I'm going to create this project, right? Click on this button. Now let's wait. Yeah, now it is asking, so we are going with this target framework .NET Core 3.1 because that's a long-term support. And remember one thing, we can also enable it for Docker if we want to go for a Docker basically deploying or want to configure our application in Docker, so we can enable it here. But as of now I'm going with the Azure DevOps, how we can create our CI/CD pipeline and how we can push our code to the Azure DevOps repository. So right now I'm going with the default settings, and let's create a project. And in a background it will provide us a template for ASP.NET Core application. So let's wait for a couple of seconds, and in a bit it will give us, yeah, you can see in our on the screen our ASP.NET Core application architecture is ready. So our template it has provided, right? And now we have our controller, model, views, whatever we want to create. So let's go to our view, and let's click on this index view, and let's see first of all let's run the application, and let's see our this welcome is when this title is basically coming on index page or not, because by default it is going to call this index page, right? So we haven't done anything, right? So I'm just running the application. So let's wait, and you can see our application is built successfully and it's running fine, and you can see our application is running fine, and we are able to navigate to any menu. You can see in the footer also we are able to navigate, right? So our application is running fine in local, right? So let's go back to our code. Let me stop the application. And one more thing, okay, so what I have done till now, I have just created our ASP.NET Core application in my local. So our first step is done, which we discussed earlier, right? So our first step is done. Now what we are going to do, we are going to push this ASP.NET Core source code to the Azure repository in DevOps, right? So for pushing the code in Azure DevOps, or we can say Azure repo, so we need to first of all create a project in DevOps. So let's go into the DevOps portal, and right now you can see I have already logged in my Azure DevOps portal. That's my account. You can see this one. So now once we log into the Azure DevOps, so you can see on the left side, these are the organizations, right? So we can create multiple organizations, and each organization can have multiple projects, right? So let's say I have created this organization, Vipin sample organization, and under this organization you can see it is showing us Vipin sample organization. So I created, and under this organization we can have multiple projects, right? And it's very meaningful in any of the organization when we are working, we could have multiple projects, right? And in this organizations I already created all these existing project, right? But now just to tell you each and everything from the scratch, let's create a new project under this organization. So we can create a new project by clicking on this button. So I'm going to create a new project, right? And why we are creating this project? Because the source code, basically the application which we developed, which we created our locally, so we want to push all the code in the Azure DevOps. And for pushing in the Azure DevOps, we need to create one project, and we will map that project with our local, right? So let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say hello world app, right? And now it is giving us two options whether we want to keep this project publicly or private. So by the name, it is very much clear. Once we select private, by default it is private. That means only the authenticated users of this particular organization can access this particular project, right? So after selecting, again I'm telling, when we are choosing private option, that means only the authenticated users under this organization will have access for this project. Once I select this public, that means anybody can access this particular project on the internet, right? But in a real time, it is not like that. So we need to select this one, private, right? And if we go under advanced, so by default it is using Git. Basically we have two types of version control system. You can see Git and TFS. So Git is your distributed version control system, and TFS is your centralized version control system. But by default we are going with the Git. And right now if we see right now what is the trend in the industry, right now most of the organizations and companies are moving forward with the Git version control, because n number of services we are getting. So that I will discuss later on, but right now I'm not getting into much detail, because right now in this session we are just focusing that how we can create CI/CD pipeline, right? And with the default setting we are going with the basic one, but we have other options. You can see Agile, CMMI, Scrum and basic, but right now I'm going with the basic to make you understand, right? So what I have done till now, I'm going to create a new project with this hello world app. So now let's click on this button, create. So now it is going to create a new project under this organization by the name hello world app. You can see our hello world app project has been created successfully, which is private, and we can invite multiple users in our organization by clicking on this button. Once we will click on this button, we can invite our multiple users, right? You can see it is giving us option, so we can invite multiple users, right, in our organization. But right now I'm the only person, and I'm the only person, and we can say that I'm the only authorized person which is having access on this particular project, right? And now if you see on the top under this organization, in the menu, in the navigation menu, if you see under this organization, weapon sample organization, we created our one project, and under this project we are on this summary page. You can see on the left side on the summary page, right? Remember one thing, Azure DevOps provide these 5 main features. You can see these 5 main features to any of the project. Let's say under any organization, when we create any project, right? So for all types of project, Azure DevOps is going to provide these 5 main features always. These are the most important 5 features which are being commonly used in today's world by most of the organization, right? And what are they? First one is your board, then repos. We usually used to say Azure repository, then pipelines, then test plan, and then artifacts. Board is nothing. It is basically a kind of board on which we are going to place all the user stories, bugs, tasks, epics, right? So let's say if you are familiar, if you are coming from that background, if you have worked on Jira tool, over there we used to have Kanban board, right? So the same UI, the same kind of feature, the same kind of flexibility Azure DevOps has provided under boards, that we can create under boards. What we can do, we can create our work items, backlogs, sprints, right? And we can create all the user stories, bugs, tasks, and all the, let's say, developer, tester, or any infra guy from the operation team, or from the testing team, or from the BA team. BA, I mean to say business analyst, right? So they all can come under this board, and they basically can create all the bugs, user stories according to their need, right? Then we have repo. Repo is the main thing in which we are going to push our code, source code, from our local to this Azure repo, right? So in just a bit, I will show you how we can push our local code to repo. Then we have pipeline. So once our source code is available, we can see that once our source code is available in this repository, then we can initiate the process of building the pipeline and for releasing the pipeline. You can see if we see on the left hand side under pipeline, if I click under pipeline, we do have let me show you. We do have, this is our build pipeline. In just a bit I will show you. And then we have a release pipeline. This is basically a CD pipeline, continuous deployment pipeline, right? So let's go back to summary part. Yeah, so you can see, so this is our pipeline in which we are going to create main CI/CD pipeline. And then we have test plan. This is basically used by the testing team for let's say we are having a number of test cases, and we want to perform any kind of automation testing or manual testing. So that is done. And then we have artifacts. Artifacts are nothing. These are basically if we talk in the context of pipeline, when we create our build pipeline, so the output of build pipeline is in the form of artifacts. Let's say when we are publishing any application in our local, so after publishing, whatever the output we are getting, so those output we used to say published content or published content files, and those output, or we can see those content files, we are going to publish on any particular web server. We are going to put it on any web server to make it visible, to make the website up and running, right? Which is we used to do normally for any application. So now, so these were the basically just an overview. These 5 features are being provided by the Azure DevOps for any project when we create under any organization in Azure DevOps, right? Now, as we have created our project, now if we go to this, our first step is already done, that we have already created our ASP.NET Core application. Now our second step is that we want to push our code from my local to the Azure repo in DevOps. And Azure repo is nothing, this one. We are talking about this thing, right? So let's go back to the project, and now let's go to the folder particular project location, and now let's open this command prompt. Sorry. Now you can see, so our command prompt is open. Now let me show you one more thing. Yeah, so that is done. Now you can see, now for pushing the code from my local, what I want to do, I want to push my source code, all my source code, to the Azure repo, right? So for pushing my code from my local to the repository, we used to have a Git folder. We need a Git folder, right? Because Git is basically responsible for pushing the code from my local to the Azure repo, right? So for that, we need to initiate, we have a command git init, right? And the moment I press, okay, one more thing, let me navigate to this location. So under this location, because right now we are under this location, yeah, under this location, you can see. Now I'm going to initialize our Git. So you see on the screen carefully, the moment I press enter key in the command prompt, our Git folder will automatically added in this folder, right? In this location. So you see, I'm going to press enter key and let's wait, and now you can see automatically our Git folder is added, right? And it is saying initialize empty Git repository in this particular location, right? And what is the purpose of that Git? Basically Git is a hidden folder, right? And the main purpose of Git is that to push our code from local to the any kind of repository. It could be your DevOps or it could be any other platform, right? So, but as of now, we are learning how we can create CI/CD pipeline in Azure DevOps. So we have seen, we have added our Git folder. Yeah, one more thing. Let's say after executing this command, we are not able to see this Git folder. It happens. So what you have to do, let me expand this. Then you can go to this view option. Once I click on this view option, we are getting this hidden item, right? As I told you that Git is a hidden folder. Once I click, you can see our Git folder has gone. But once I click again and once I click on this checkbox hidden item, that means our Git, you can see our Git folder is coming because Git is this is your hidden file, right? So for any reason, if you are not able to see your Git folder, so please also try that after executing this command. Please enable the checkbox in the view section for the hidden files, right? So now we have initialized our Git. Now what we want to do, now we are going to push our code first locally. So let's do it, because when we are working with the Git repository, it basically create a repository in the local system. So whatever changes we are going to make in our application, let's say whatever changes we are going to make in this application, let's say in future we are going to add one new HTML, or let's say one more controller, any model, or change, or let's say we have applied some changes in the layout file, right? So any kind of changes, whatever we are going to do, after doing changes in your application, what we need to do, we need to push it locally first, because when we are working with Git automatically creates your local repository. So for pushing it, okay, let me check first of all status. So command is this one, get status. So let's press enter, and now it will show us that, yeah, you can see on branch master. Right now we are on the branch master, right? And now let me stage the content. So first of all, we are going to stage the content locally first. So the command is git add. So let's press enter and let's wait. So yes, our command is executed successfully. It's giving a warning, so we can ignore it, right? And now the main thing, we are going to commit. Let's say let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say initial status, right? Initial status. So what this command is going to do, this is basically going to commit our changes in the local repository first, in our local system. So let me press enter key. Once I press enter key, so you will see it basically it is going to stage the content in our local repository first. So you can see all these source code is basically committed to our local repo. So that has been executed successfully. Now what I'm going to do, now I'm going to push it my this source code to the Azure repo, and the command is origin master. So git push origin master. So what this command is going to do, the moment I will press the enter key, then all our source code, you can see this application which we created in my local. So all this source code is going to be available in this Azure repo under here section. In a bit you will see, right? So under this Azure repo, or we can say repository, our source code is going to be available under this repo. So let me show you. So now I'm going to press enter key. So the moment I will press Okay, yeah, one more thing. Once we have committed our changes in my local, right? So now what we want to do, we have to go in the repo, and in the repo you can see we are getting these two options. It is saying this project is empty right now because we don't have any code, any source code available for this project, right? If you see under this organization, we created this project, right? And for this project we don't have any repository, right? It is empty because just now we created. So we are supposed to add repository for this project, right? And from where we are going to add this repository? From my local code, this one. So we are going to push all my this source code to the this repository. So now it is giving two options. So let's say when we are having let's say on this Azure DevOps we already have an repository. Then in that case we go for this option. We can copy this URL. But as of now our project is empty. It is saying our project is empty. So we need to add our repository for this project. So for that we need to copy this URL. So remember one thing, when we are going to push our source code from my local to the Azure repo, and when repo is empty, when we are doing it for the first time, then we need to copy this URL, right? So let's copy by clicking on this icon, and that has been copied to the clipboard. And now I'm going to my local. Let's go to the command prompt, and now you see the beauty. Now let's paste it. Control V I'm doing, and now it has pasted, and it is nothing. It is this command it has copied. So whatever we copy from here, this is the main command which has been copied by the clipboard, right? So now let me go to the command prompt, and you can see git push origin all. Now we are going to push. We are going to commit. We can say we are going to push our all source code from my local to this Azure repo, right? So the moment I press enter key, so you see. So let's click on this. I am pressing the enter key, and let's wait for a couple of seconds. So it's going to push all my source code to this Azure repo in DevOps. So you can see process has been started, and it has pushed. You can see it has already pushed my source code to this particular URL. And what is the URL? On this Azure DevOps, under this we are having this organization. You can see weapon sample organization, and under this organization we created this project, right? This project, and under this project we have pushed our code to this repository. Now our code has been pushed. We can see our code has been committed from my local to the Azure repo. Now let's go back to the DevOps. So let me minimize, and now we are in the DevOps. Now let me click on this repo, and now we would be able to see that you can see our source code is available in this repo, and all the things are available. You can see controllers, models. You can see our views, the index view, whatever we make the changes, right? So you can see our source code is now available in this Azure repository. So what we have done till now, so we created our local application, and after testing this local application, we basically committed our code from my local to the Azure repository, and our source code is available under this repo. You can see our source code is now available. So till now we have completed these two steps, right? Now we are going to initiate the process of building the pipeline for continuous integration in Azure DevOps, right? So let's get started. So once our source code is available in our repo, then we will initiate the process of pipeline. So I'm going to pipeline, and let's click on this pipeline. Now we will create a new pipeline. You can see it is asking to create a pipeline. So we will create a build pipeline, and build pipeline is nothing. It is your continuous integration pipeline to build your application, right? So now you can see Remember one thing, that for initiating the process of building pipeline, for building any kind of pipeline, we have two ways. Either we can create a pipeline with YAML. YAML is your yet another markup language, right? And this is the, we can say, this is the modern way and the standard way for creating any build pipeline, right? And we do have other option also, that we can create our pipeline with the help of this classic editor. So as of now, I'm going with this classic editor approach. Later on, I will let you know that how we can create build pipeline with YAML also. In YAML, basically we used to code it manually, right? And with the help of classic editor, we need to configure we need to configure the things by using you can say a dialog box, right? So let's go to the classic editor. So as of now, I'm going to the classic editor for creating a pipeline. Now it is asking, you want to create a build pipeline, so what would be the source for that? So as I told you, that our source code is available in this Azure repo, and we used to see we used to call it Azure repo git, right? And by default it is already selected Azure repos git, right? uh, we do have other options also, right? We have other repository. We can go with the GitHub subversions, Bitbucket Cloud, and other Git, and also we can configure other repositories, right? But as of now, we are going with the Azure repo Git because our source code is already available in our Azure repo Git, and right now this has been become a trend that most of the company is going with Azure DevOps, right? So our source is already selected, so I'm going with the Azure repos git. This is our project, so we want to tell for which project we want to create this pipeline. So as I told you, under this organization, Wipin sample organization, we have all these. I already created all these projects, right? But as of now, you have seen that just now we created a new project, Hello World app. So we are going to create a pipeline for this project, right? And the repository will be same, right? And on the master branch, right? Now let's click on the continue button. Now it is asking for template. So as you know that in the local we created our ASP.NET Core application. So we need to tell the pipeline that it is of ASP.NET Core application. So let's select this one. So ASP.NET Core. Let's apply this. Right now we are on this screen. Now it is asking to provide the parameters. So it is asking to provide your build pipeline name. So let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say we keep it build pipeline because we are creating a build pipeline for this project, right? So we have provided the meaningful name. So our name of the build pipeline is Hello World App Build Pipeline. Now it is asking for agent pool. So agent pool is nothing. By default, I am taking Azure pipeline because as it is my free account, so I'm going with the Azure pipeline. But we can configure our. Let's say we want to go for our self hosting, right? So we can go for private option, and then we need to configure accordingly. Let's say we want to configure in our on premises any dedicated machine, then we have to choose private, and then we can configure it accordingly. But as of now, as I do have a free account, so I'm going with Azure pipeline. So just to make you understand how the CI/CD pipeline works, right? And now we need to specify agent specification. So it is basically asking on which platform you want to execute your pipeline. So I want to execute this pipeline for this project which is available in this repo. I want to get it execute in any of these operating system. You can go for Mac OS, you can go for Ubuntu, you can go for Windows, Linux, whatever you want. So I have already tested, it is working fine for Mac OS, Ubuntu, whatever we want to take. Why it is running fine? Because as we know that ASP.NET Core application is a platform independent, right? And when any application is a platform independent, that means that particular application can be executed and can be run successfully in any of the platform, whether we are going to run it in Mac OS, in Linux, in Ubuntu or Windows. But as of now, to make you understand, I'm choosing this option, Windows 2019, right? That's it. And now, yeah, one more thing I want to tell you. Before I save this pipeline, I want to tell you that let's say uh, when we are creating any kind of application in my local, right, and we normally used to build it, right, by applying this build option, right. So once we build it, so what all processes are being executed in a background, so that we don't know, right. So to see what all kind of processes are being performed in a background by the Visual Studio Engine, so let me show you this. So once we build any kind of application, right, so let's say we are building any application in my local, then in a background it normally used to perform all these commands. Firstly, it will execute the restore command. Restore is nothing. It is basically used to install and check all the required NuGet packages, right, for your particular application. So once it is executed successfully, then it will execute your build command and it is going to build your application. And then if we have, let's say, any test cases we have we can see unit test cases, then it is going to run these command in a background and then it is going to publish in our local. So all these steps are going to perform on this platform also, right. So when we create this build pipeline, so in a background it is going to perform restore, build, test, publish and publish artifact, right. And publish artifact is nothing. It is the let's say when we are publishing, let's say when we click on this publish icon, and after publishing your application, we need to configure it right here. But what I'm trying to say, when we publish any application and the output of that publish your publish command, so we normally used to copy all those files and we normally used to place it on any web server, and we can see that our any particular web application is running fine, right, and we can access it from anywhere, right. But as of now, as we don't have any test cases, so I'm going to disable this task. So right, that's it. So what will happen behind the scene once I create this build pipeline, hello world app build pipeline, right. So once this pipeline will be created and once I'm going to trigger it, or we can say once I'm going to call it this build pipeline, then behind the scene what will happen, Azure DevOps will assign a dedicated machine by the name of agent. When we are talking in terms of DevOps, so it is normally we used to say agent, right. So agent is nothing. You simply understand that agent is you can say agent is a kind of dedicated machine which your Microsoft is going to provide in a background, and on that particular dedicated machine all these commands are going to be performed for building any kind of application which is available in your repo, right. So once our source code is available, then it is going to execute this build pipeline, and once our build pipeline is going to execute in a background, it is going to execute all these commands on any dedicated machine that is being provided by the Azure DevOps, right. So let's go back, and once our application is published, so you can see once our application will be published, it will at the end it will generate artifact, and artifact is nothing. It is the output of your publish command, and right now it is going to create your artifact name by default. It has taken drop, but we can give it any meaningful name, but let's keep it default. And after publishing your application, or we can say after running your build pipeline, it is going to generate your artifacts, or we can say your published file or published content files, which we are supposed to place all those files in a particular web server, right. So let's go to our pipeline first of all, and we have configured all the things for creating your build pipeline. So let's save and queue, right. And now let me okay, let's save and run, right? So the moment I started, so you will see that our pipeline will get start. So in the background, it is basically running your pipeline. So right now we have manually triggered, but later on I will tell you that how it will get automatically triggered once we have once we committed our code from my local to the Git repository, right? So let's wait. Okay, so let me refresh it. So now you can see, let's wait, and now you can see if I click on this pipeline, you can see our pipeline has been started. Initial status just now you can see, and when I click on this build pipeline, so behind the scene what's you can see it is under process, it is running. And when I click on this build pipeline, behind the scene it has assigned agent job 1. So it has, what DevOps has done, it has assigned a dedicated machine on which it is going to run these all these steps. So you can see behind the scene it is running all these steps. First of all, it will initialize the job, then it will check out your source code from your repo, right? Then it is going to perform restore command, then it is going to perform build, then it is going to perform publish, and at the end we are basically interested for the artifacts, right? So let's wait. So in the background all these commands are going to be performed, and all these commands have been executed successfully. So right now we have triggered it manually. So let's wait and let's click on the pipeline, and let me show you. Now you can see it is done. It is showing us success. So our pipeline, this pipeline has been executed. We can see this pipeline has been triggered successfully, and it is showing us the time and agent job 1 status success. Now you can see, now we got one artifact produced. So we are basically interested in this artifact. So let me click on this artifact. Let me show you. So you can see by the name drop, as we discussed earlier. So by the name drop artifact it has created, and this is nothing. This is your published content, or we can say published content files. So let me show you. Let me download it. So I'm going to download artifacts, right? And let me open it in the folder, and now let me extract to this one. And this is nothing. This is basically your, you can see hello world app 1, and this is your basically content file. You can see this is all your published content file, and this is we supposed to what we used to do normally. We copy all these published file, and we supposed to deploy it on any web server, and our application is up, and that is running fine for any kind of application, right? So artifact is nothing. Simply you can see this is your output of your build pipeline, and this is your published content file, which we used to copy and put it on any deployment server to make any application live, right? So our build pipeline is configured. So you have seen. So right now we can see in the list we manually basically triggered this pipeline, right? So now let me show you. Let's go back to the project and let's make some changes in this project, right? And let's say welcome to CI/CD session, right? And so save the changes. And now what I'm going to do now, whatever changes I did in my local, now I'm going to push the code to the repository. So let's go back to the command prompt, and now let's clear the screen. So first of all, let's check the status of your Git. So it will tell us that your branch is up to date. Yeah, so branch is up to date. Now we are going to stage the content first of all locally. So this is the command. Now we are going to commit our change locally. Let's say we have updated our title, right? So title updated, right? So now I'm going to press enter. So what it is going to do, it is going to commit our code in local first, right? So locally it is going to commit. So so we have basically staged our content in my local repo. Now I'm going to push it in my repository. Git push, and let's say origin master, right? Now let me show you the screen. Let me open this DevOps screen, right? And also me open this screen, right? Let me divide the screen into two sections so that you can see it carefully, and open this one. Yeah, so you can see. So now you see, the moment I press enter key from my keyboard, so my source code, or we can see the moment I press enter key from my keyboard, so my code is going to be committed automatically in this Azure repo, right? And once my code is committed to the repository, then automatically it's going to trigger this build pipeline. Yeah, one more thing I want to tell you. Uh, to trigger it automatically, let's go back to pipeline, and let's go to run. Let's click on this particular pipeline, and let's click on this pipeline. So option should be there. Yeah, edit option. Yeah, so I'm going to add it, and now this time I want to get it triggered automatically. So you see, we created this build pipeline by this name, right, just now. But now I want to get it triggered automatically. So to get it triggered, go to this trigger tab, and you can see enable continuous integration. We need to tick this checkbox. So the moment I tick this checkbox, now I'm going to save it. Save. Now what will happen, automatically this build pipeline will get triggered. So let's see into the picture. So let's go back to the pipeline, and right now you can see on the screen, initially we have only one pipeline which we manually run just now, right? But now what I want this pipeline to be triggered automatically, right? So let me open this one. So this screen, and what we want this screen, right? So now we are going to push, because we have already made some changes in my local, and now I'm going to push my code from my local to the Git repository. So you see very carefully, the moment I press enter key from my keyboard, right? So automatically this build pipeline will get triggered, right? Repeating again, as soon as I'm going to press enter key from command prompt, this build pipeline will get automatically triggered. So let's press enter key, and our new pipeline will get start with this name, title updated, right? Because we have committed with this label name, right? So let's look into the picture. I have pressed enter key. Now let's wait for a moment. In a background, it is going to execute some process. So let's see. Yeah, so you can see process has been started, and it has pushed our code to this particular URL, to this organization, and to this project. Now let me close this window, let me maximize, and let's refresh this button. You can see load one URL, automatically it comes, and our build pipeline automatically get triggered with title updated. Now let me click on this pipeline. Now it is running. You can see status, it is running on this agent job 1. Now let's go back to this build pipeline, and behind the scene, what Azure DevOps has done, it has dynamically allocated one dedicated machine, and it's going to perform all these steps which we discussed earlier, that first of all it will initialize the job, then it will check out the code from your Azure repo, right? Because our source code, new source code is available in your repo. Then after checking out the code, then it is going to perform restore, then build, then publish, and then at the end artifact. And we are basically interested to get artifact. And now we can see on the screen how fast it is executing and one artifact produced. So let's click on this artifact and you can see the same, we are getting our published content file. So this artifact is nothing, as we discussed earlier. This is our published content file, so we can say published file, or we can see the output of your build pipeline in the form of published file, which is called artifacts in Azure DevOps, right? So our build pipeline is completed. Now if we click in this run section, you can see earlier we were having only one pipeline, but now it is showing two pipeline, right? So first one we triggered manually, but now this one which we you can see just now it has been triggered automatically, right? So you have seen. So what we have done till now, that we have pushed our we did some changes in my local, and then after making some changes in my local, then I push my code from my local to this Azure repo, and as soon as we can see that once I committed my code to this repo, so when our source code is available, automatically our build pipeline started. So it automatically triggered build pipeline and perform all the steps, and it is saying that our build pipeline is running, that has been run successfully. You can see success, right? Now let me take you to this page. Now our third step is also completed. We have configured for creating your build pipeline, or we can say continuous integration pipeline in Azure DevOps. So now we can build your application by calling this build pipeline, right? And that's going to be happen automatically. As soon as we are going to push our code from my local to repo, then this build pipeline will automatically get triggered, and that we have seen just now, right? Now the next step, now we are going to perform release pipeline. This is the main in which we are going to have we are basically going to create our continuous deployment, and which we will create multiple stages, or we can say environment or vision. When I say stages, vision, environment, meaning is same. So under this release pipeline, we are going to create multiple stages like dev region, QA, staging, or prod, right? Or it could be other whatever we want to create, right? So let's look into the picture. So now we are going to perform this fourth step. So let's go to the DevOps. Now let's click on this as in this release. Now we are going to create release pipeline. So let's click on this new pipeline. So let's wait. Yeah, so you can see. Yeah, so now we are going to deploy it in our Azure by using this Azure App Service deployment, right? So let's click this, apply this, and now it is asking stage 1. So let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say dev. I'm going to give it a meaningful name. Let's say dev region. So right now we are in this stage, dev region, right? But the question the question arises that for this particular dev region, from where we are going to get the input, right? So for providing input for this dev region, we need to add an artifact. And from where we can add an artifact? Artifact is nothing. We have just seen that the output of your build pipeline is your artifact, right? So if I click on this, okay, stay. So let me first of all add an artifact, and you can see it is asking source type. So we are going to provide from build pipeline, which we created build pipeline, right? And the project name. So for this project we are going to provide, and now you can see we need to provide source of build pipeline. So we we simply created just only one build pipeline. You can see by the name Hello World App Build Pipeline, which we created just a few minutes back. You have seen, right? And now it is going to take latest version and it is going to provide the alias of your build pipeline. So let's add it. So the moment I click on this add button, you can see our artifact is added. So this is basically nothing. It is basically the output of your build pipeline, right? So when I click on this, okay, stay, and let me save. Yeah, that's already saved. So now we can see for this dev stage, or we can see for this dev region, now it is becoming the input. So now it is going to become input for this dev region, and under this dev region we are going to deploy our application. We are going to host our application on the basis of this artifact. And artifact is nothing, it is your published content files, which I have shown you earlier by downloading your artifact in my local, right? So now after once our source code is available in repo, then automatically it will trigger your build pipeline. Once your build pipeline is successfully triggered, and once it is done successfully, once it has been run successfully, then it's going to generate your output of your build pipeline in the form of artifacts, and that output we are going to provide to this CD, to this dev region first. Normally in the industry we used to deploy our application in the development region first, right? So now it is going to become output for this dev region, right? Now I'm going to add some job and task for this dev region. So let's click on this job, and now for this region, or for this development stage, we need to provide Azure subscription. Now the main thing comes that let's say we are in the dev region, right? And we want to deploy our application in dev region, but where we are going to deploy our application, right? So in the starting, if you remember, I told you that we are going to deploy our application in Azure Portal by using Azure App Service, right? But the problem is that for deploying your application in dev region, we need to create a connection, or we need to establish a connection between your DevOps and your Azure cloud, right? So let's say on Azure cloud, or we can say Azure Portal, we used to have app service. We will create an app service, and under this app service we are going to host an application, right? But this is a different platform. You can see that's your cloud platform for Microsoft Azure, right? And this is your Azure DevOps. But for deploying your application in dev region, there must be something common. So for that we need to create a connection between DevOps and between Azure cloud. So for that, for creating your service connection, so let's go back to this and let's open link in new tab. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a connection between the Azure DevOps, between this Azure DevOps dev region and to this Azure cloud. And why we are doing this? Because we are establishing a connection between the Azure DevOps and Azure cloud in order to host our application in Azure Cloud App Service. This app service is nothing. This is your web app or app service, or we can say a kind of server, a kind of dedicated machine on which our application is going to be run, right? So let's go back and let's create our new service connection. So what I did, let me show you one more thing. For creating this Azure subscription service connection, let's click on this and open link in a new tab. Let's go back, and under this project we must have option service connection, right? Let's go back to let's go to the service connection and let's create service connection. As I'm having free account, so just to make you understand, I'm going to deploy it in Azure cloud, right? In this Azure portal. So for that I'm going to choose Azure Resource Manager, right? Now let's scroll it down and let's click on next, and now automatically it is asking for service principal. So as already I am having account in Azure DevOps and in Azure cloud, So automatically in the background it is going to configure each and everything. So let's click on next button, and it is in the background all processes is being executed by the Microsoft Azure, and you can see our subscription is coming. As I told you, that's a free trial, and now we can provide our service connection name. So let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say Azure subscription. To make it more meaningful, let's say Weapon Finder, right? Now we are going to create a new service connection by this name. Remember, Azure subscription VP. So now let's click the save button. Now what it will do, something is gone wrong. Okay, couldn't authenticate to Azure Active Directory if a pop-up blocker is enabled in the browser. Disable it and try again. Okay, what it is saying, pop-up blocker is enabled in the browser. Disable it and try again. Okay, so done. Now let me click on the save button. Okay, I am in my this. Let me refresh this page. Let me check. I am on this login. Yeah, I am already in my this Azure account. Yeah, that's fine. And now what it is saying, something I have done wrong. Okay, let me close this. I have already logged in, so yeah. So now let's take once again create service connection, choosing Azure Resource Manager, and let's click on this next, and now let's click on this next. So the moment I select, right, so now it is, now let's provide meaningful name. Let's say Azure subscription VP. Let's click on the save button. So let's wait. It's executing some process in the background. So the moment I selected, yeah, so it is asking for credential, just for verifying. So let me enter my account. Now it will ask to enter the password. So let me enter the password. So basically, I was just logged into another account. So for that reason, we were facing some errors. So I just closed that account, and now we can see now it is giving us a subscription name which I am having right now, and automatically all the processes have been executed by the Microsoft in the background because I am already logged in. I'm already logged in my DevOps account and to the Azure Portal. Right now. Since we were supposed to create a service connection name, so let's give it a meaningful name, Azure subscription. Let's give it a meaningful name, let's say Weapon and right. And now I'm going to click on the save button. Now you can see it is setting up connection. It's in process behind the scene, right? And it will create a new service connection by the name this. Yes, we got it, Azure subscription VP, right? So now when we create our service connection, and why we created this service connection, because we want to establish a relation between, or we can say we want to establish a connection between your Azure DevOps and Azure Cloud Portal, right? And why we are doing this? So why we are doing this, because in order to deploy our application in Azure App Service in this Azure Cloud Portal, we need to tell the DevOps that we need to create a this we need to create this service connection, and with the help of this service connection we are basically telling the DevOps that we are going to deploy our application in Azure App Service in this. So that's it. So our Azure subscription VP is created successfully. Now let's go back to our pipeline. So we were already for dev stage and we were configuring our dev stage, and now if I click on this Azure subscription, so right now we are not getting, right, but the moment I click on this refresh icon, it will load whatever what we created just now, this service connection, right, by the name Azure subscription VP. So now let's click, and now let's click on this refresh icon. It will reload and we can see we are getting service connection by this name Azure subscription VP, right, the same which we created by this name, right. So this is basically we can say doing kind of handshaking between your DevOps and your Azure cloud, right. So let's go back to our pipeline. So we are in the pipeline, and now we need to provide app type. So we can give all these. We can run our application in Windows platform, in Linux, in container, even function apps. So I have tested in all these Linux and container, all working fine, because ASP.NET Core is platform independent, as I told you. So but as of now I'm taking web app on Windows to make you understand, to keep the things simple. Now it is asking to which app service you want to deploy your application in dev region. So basically it is asking to which app service you want to deploy your application in this particular dev stage or dev region. So right now we don't have any app service. So if I click on this drop down, yes, we have this app service, but on this particular app service my another website is already running, right. So we are not going to take this app service. So let's go to the Azure Portal. Now we are in the Azure Portal, or we can say Azure Cloud, and now we are going to create a new app service for that dev region deployment, right. So let's create a new app service. When I say app service or web app, meaning is same. So these terms are used interchangeably, right. So you can see create web app. So now under free trial, I have already created my resource group by the name resource group weapon. And now under this resource group, we are going to give it a meaningful name for your app service. So let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say Hello World Web Demo. Let's give it a dev region, right. So you can see we have provided the app service name, something like Hello World Web Demo for dev region, to make it meaningful that this app service is basically used for development region deployment, right. Now we are going to publish with code. Runtime stack would be, let's take it .NET 6 latest one, and now Windows platform. We can host our application on Windows also, and even on Linux also. So I have already tested in Linux also, it is running fine, because as I told you, ASP.NET Core is a platform independent, right. So it's not like that. We can do this thing also. Let's say we have created our ASP.NET Core application on Windows, then we can host our application in Linux also. Either vice versa. Either we can create a ASP.NET Core application in Linux and we can deploy it in our Windows. So as ASP.NET Core is a platform independent, we can deploy it anywhere. So as of now, I'm taking Windows, and now let's take region Central US. So after clicking on this drop down, we can see all these servers. We can create our region in all these locations. But as of now, I'm taking the default one. We are going to basically we are going to locate our app service under this region, Central US, right. And now let's keep it all things default. Now we are going to create, let's review and create, and now it is asking for again confirmation. Under this subscription, we are going to create our app service under this subscription and under this resource group. right? So let's see the things and confirm, and let's click on create. Now you can see our deployment has been started. It is initializing the deployment, and in the background it is running some processes, and it's basically deploying. Basically it is going to provide us a kind of machine, we can see, on which we can deploy our application. And we can see a deployment is in progress. Let me click on refresh button, so we can see what all operations are going to perform in the background. Yeah, in the list in the bottom you can see. So yeah, so I'm clicking on this button, refresh. You can see all these processes are being executed in the background, and still our deployment is in progress. So let's wait for a couple of seconds. It will not take not more than 20 seconds. Our app service will get ready for our dev region deployment, right? So let's wait for a couple of seconds. Yeah, we can see our deployment is complete. So go to resource, and now we can see, let me click on this home, let me click on this app service. Now we can see, okay, let me refresh. Our dev app service will come in just a bit because it is running behind the scenes. So let me click once again, refresh. Yeah, so let me click on this. Yeah, so we can see our hello world web demo dev app service is running. Now what does it mean? It means that our we can say a kind of dedicated machine, or kind of server, or we can say our app service is available on this app service. We can host our application, or we can deploy any application in this dev region, and it is, you can see the status is showing running. So this app service is in running state, right? So this is basically for dev environment. So we are going to deploy our application in dev region in this app service, right? Similarly, let's create one more app service. Let's say this time for QA, right? And in this QA we are going to deploy our QA application. So let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say hello world web demo. Let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say QA, right? The same thing, we are going to keep it runtime stack .NET 6 on Windows, and let's create. The same thing is going to happen. Now let's create. Our deployment has been initialized, and by the time it is creating your app service for QA, so okay, let's wait. It will not take much time. So it's going to deploy, it's basically going to deploy another app service. Basically we can say another machine on which, or we can say another server on which we are going to deploy our application. So you can see deployment is in progress. So let's wait. Let me click on this refresh. So all these processes are being executed in the background by the Microsoft Azure. So all we have to do nothing. All these are taken care by the Microsoft itself. So let's wait. Deployment is still in process. Yeah, deployment is completed. Now let's go back to the home. Now we can see under app service. Now we must be having QA app service also. So by the, I think it is running in the background. Yeah. So as after clicking on this refresh button, we can see now we have, now our two app services are ready. So now we can deploy our we can deploy application in dev region in this app service, and for QA we can deploy our application in this app service, right? So now let's go back to our pipeline. So we were creating our release pipeline, and we were on the first stage, dev stage, right? And now we would be getting our this app service name. Which app service name? Which we created for dev, hello world web demo dev, right? So let's go back to pipeline and let's reload. So I'm clicking on this refresh icon, and now we would be able to see our new, you can see our new app service which we created just now, right? Dev and QA. But as we are on the dev stage, so we are going to deploy our dev region. Deployment needs to be happen in this dev app service, right? So let's take this. So you can see our app service name is Hello World Web Demo Dev, right? So that's it. So we have configured for dev. Let's save this, save the changes. Let's go back to the pipeline. Now you can see that our this particular stage, dev stage, is ready. Now we can deploy our application. So as soon as our this CD pipeline will get triggered automatically, then the deployment will automatically happen. Will going to start in dev region, and in dev region where it is going to deploy your application, we are basically hosting our application in this Azure App Service, in this Hello World Web Demo Dev App Service, right? So now let's create one more stage, so we can add one more stage. The same step, I'm going to apply Azure App Service deployment. Now let's give it a meaningful name, QA, and now let's give it let's close this. Now let's add some job for this particular stage, right? So now the same thing for this particular stage or for this particular vision, we already created our service connection, right? Azure subscription VP, as we have seen, we are keeping it the same. And now for QA, now as we are on the QA stage, so we want to get it deployed in the QA app service, which we created just now. So let's check. You can see we are getting Hello World Web Demo QA app service. So I'm taking this option, right? So, right, getting my point. Now our QA stage is also configured. Now let's go and save the changes. Now let's go back to the pipeline. Now you can see, now after the deployment, when the deployment on dev vision will be done, then automatically it's going to deploy on the QA, right? Now okay, let's create one more stage, then I'll show you the demo how the things are going to be happen automatically, right? So let's create one more stage from here. So let's create one more stage. Let's take Azure app, and now let's give it a meaningful name. Let's say prod, right? So after QA, we are going to deploy, we are going to promote the changes to the production server. Now same thing we are going to apply. We are going to add some job to the prod stage. We need to apply the service connection we already created, right? And the same web app on Windows. And now for deploying our application for this production region, so we need to have prod app service, but right now we don't have. We already created for dev and QA, but for prod we don't have any app service. So let's go back to the Azure Portal and let's create one more app service, right? Let's create one more app service. So the same thing under the same resource group I'm going to create, and let's give it a meaningful name. And now we need to provide your app service name. So let's give it Hello Web World Demo. Let's say we give it a meaningful name. Let's say prod, right? So by the name it is clear that this app service is for production region. Now taking the same, we are publishing through code. Let's take runtime stack.NET 6 Windows operating system, and now review plus create. Now let's create this app service for prod. Now you can see, now what we are doing, we are creating third app service for production region, right? Getting my point? So now our deployment has been submitted. So our deployment is under process for creating Azure App Service for production. So you can see deployment is in progress. So let's wait for a couple of seconds. It will not take much time, right? So sometimes it works very fast, and sometimes it used to take some time because as it is a free account, so might be. So yes, so we can see all these processes are being executed in a background. Now in just a bit our app service is going to be ready. So we can see that our machine is going to be ready. We can see our deployment is completed. Now let's go back to our app service. Now in the app service list, let me click on this refresh icon. We would be getting our prod also. You can see now our app service is ready for production deployment. So what I want to say that when we are going to host application for dev region, right? Okay, let me show you over here. So when we are going to deploy our application in dev region, then we will deploy our application in dev app service. Then for QA, this is our QA app service for deployment purpose, and for production we will go for deployment in this production app service. And all these three machines are up. You can see these all are in running status, so we can come anytime, right? And we can come anytime here, and we can deploy our application, we can host our application in any of the machines according to the different stages, right? So now let's go back to the pipeline. So as we are on the prod stage, so for prod stage we need to provide this app service name, and for this app service name, let's click on this refresh icon. Now we would be getting prod also, which we created just now. You can see prod app service is also coming, which we created just now in app service by the name hello web world demo prod, right? And the same thing we are getting in this app service name drop down, hello web world demo prod, right? So let's check this. So you can see now we have chosen app service hello web world demo prod. Now for production stage, or we can say for production region, we have provided app service name. So we are going to host our application for production in this app service, right? Or we can say in this web app, right? So let's save the changes, click on OK. Now let's go back to the pipeline. Now we can say our CD pipeline is ready, right? So you can see our dev, QA, then prod. But one thing what I want, that let's say when the deployment on dev server is done, right? Let's say when the deployment is done on development region, so we want to apply post deployment condition. That it's not like that when the deployment is done automatically in the dev region, then automatically it should deploy in the QA region. No, it's not like that. In real time also, in the real scenario also, we are not supposed to do that like this. What we used to have, let's say once we deployed our application into the dev region, then there should be some approval, right? Let's say our development manager will come, and he will give approval. Let me, so as of now, let me give to myself, because I am the only authorized in this particular organization, right? That's it. And now let's save this. Now you can see tick mark is coming. That means until and unless the development manager or development lead will not come here and will not give approval, it is not going to promote the same changes to the QA region. It will wait for the approval here, right? Once our deployment is done in dev region, right? So once our deployment is done in dev region, then it will be waiting for an approval from the development manager, or we can say development lead. So whosoever is a person having that kind of authority, he will come and he will approve it. Then it will go to the next stage for the deployment. So once development manager will approve, then it's going to deploy the same thing to the QA region. And now when the QA deployment is done, so we don't want to get it done automatically for the production region, right? So let's say on the QA, our application has been hosted and our QA team has tested all the functionality. Now we want that our QA manager will come, or QA lead will come, and he will check all the things, and he will give an approval for applying the same changes to the prod, or we can say for promoting the same changes from QA to the prod, but after giving approval. So let's apply and let's give post deployment approval. Let's give me my name, right? That's it. Now tick mark, right? So in just a bit I will show you a demo that how the things are going to happen basically in the background. So now what we have done, once our deployment is done on dev region, then our development manager will come and he will give approval. Until and unless he will not assign an approval, he will not give sign off, your deployment is not going to happen on QA. It will wait, because we have applied approval, or we can say we have applied post deployment condition over here, and that is supposed to be happen in a real-time scenario also, right? When we work in the industry, right? So once everything is tested by the development team, then your development manager will come, he will approve, then the deployment going to happen in the QA. And the same thing we are going to perform on the QA region. Once QA team will test it and everything is running fine, and then the QA team or QA manager will come and he or she will approve. Once he or she will give sign off, then the same changes we are going to promote to the production. But one more thing I want to say, that on the production region, as it is a very critical stage, so it's not like that once we got approval from QA manager, then we are going to simply deploy directly into the production region. No, it's not like that. On production also, we want to apply some, you can say, a kind of manual intervention, right? So let's say when QA manager gives approval, so on the production, before getting it deployed to the production, there should be some, you can say, a person with having some high authority. He or she will come and he will check that, yeah, everything's running fine till QA region, and QA manager has given approval. Then he will come here in the production stage and he will give an approval, a kind of approval. Once he or she will give approval, then the deployment will go. Then the deployment will happen in the production region, right? So let's apply manual intervention, right? So again, I am telling you that production is a critical stage. So it's not like that after QA deployment, it's going to deploy automatically, or we can say that we don't want to get it deployed simultaneously after QA, right? So we don't want such kind of thing. We want a manual intervention on production also, because it is your production server. So let's go to production. Let's apply a task, and for production, you can see right now we are on the production stage, third deployment process. Now we are going to add an agentless job, and to this agentless job we are going to add some task. And what kind of task we are going to add? A manual intervention. You can see a manual intervention we are going to add. So you can see manual intervention. So let's click on this add button, and automatically it has been added in this section, right? So let's close this. Now what happened? Let's say when deployment in QA is done successfully. So once QA manager will give sign off for deploying the same changes to the prod. So on the prod, it's not like that automatically it should deploy. First of all, it should execute this step, right? So let's say we are on the production server, and on the production server, first of all, this manual intervention, this job should get executed first. Then it should deploy the same thing on the deploy Azure app service for the production region, right? So for that, what we can do, we need to change the order of this. So let's drag and drop, and now you can see, now at the top we are having manual intervention, then after this we are having deployment for production region, right? So now what will happen, once QA manager will give sign off, then what will happen, it will come to the production and it will first of all perform manual intervention. Once a person with high authority or with higher authority, he or she will approve, he or she will give sign off, or he or she will give approval on this, then it is going to deploy on production server. And that is supposed to be happen in real-time scenario, right? So that's why we have changed the order. First of all, it is going to perform this manual intervention, right? Then it is going to perform your deployment in the production server. So let's go and see the changes, and we are done. Now let's go back to the pipeline. So you can see it done. So now we can see our CD pipeline, or we can see our release pipeline is also configured, and we have created our CD pipeline. So now what will happen, let me tell you one thing, that let's say once we have committed our code, let's say we made some changes in our local, and we have pushed our code from local to the Azure repository. So once our source code is available in this repo, then automatically our build pipeline will get triggered, right? Once our build pipeline will get triggered automatically, and when it is triggered successfully, and when we can see the output of build pipeline is generated successfully in the form of artifacts, then automatically it's going to trigger release pipeline. But for getting it triggered automatically, we need to tell the pipeline that you have to trigger continuous deployment automatically, and for that, this is the option. You can see we need to click on this icon for continuous deployment trigger. Once I click on this icon, we need to enable it, and we need to provide our branch. So right now we are having a master branch, right? That's it. And now we can close and we can save the changes, right? That's it. Now what will happen once our build pipeline is generated successfully, once our pipeline is successfully done, then it's going to automatically, it will call this release pipeline, this continuous deployment pipeline. And on the basis of this artifact, which is nothing, this is your published content file. On the basis of this artifact, it's going to deploy in dev region first. Automatically it will deploy in the dev region, but once the deployment is completed in dev region, it's not going to deploy in the QA automatically. Why so? Because we have applied the check here that it will be waiting for some kind of approval. So let's say a development manager will come and he or she will give approval. Once we got sign up from the development manager, then it is going to promote the same changes in the QA region, right? And the same thing we have done, we have applied condition on the QA, that on the QA what's going to happen, or once QA team will test the application, if everything is running fine and okay, and if everything seems to be okay, then QA manager will come and he will give a sign off, or he will approve for the next stage deployment, right? So until and unless your QA manager will not give approval, it's not going to deploy the changes in the production, right? Once the QA manager will give approval, then automatically it's going to deploy in production. But in production also, we have applied one check that manual intervention need to be done. Why so? Because production vision is a very critical stage. So it's not like that on the basis of QA manager approval we can deploy on the production server directly. No, it's not like that. In the real time, in the real scenario, also on the production, or when we are going to promote any kind of changes in the production server, we need to apply some manual intervention. Let's say a person from the client testing team, or let's say owner of let's say any person with a higher authority at the client end, he or she will come and he will check, okay, till QA everything is running, and everything is tested, each and everything is running fine, and our QA manager has given approval. So now we can go for deployment in production server. So he or she will come and he will give approval on the production also. As soon as he will click on the approval button on production, then our deployment will automatically started in the production region. So the same changes is going to promote it to the production region, and our application can be hosted. Our application will be hosted in the Azure App Service of production, right? So in just a bit, I am going to show you a demo. So our pipeline is ready. Now you can see our QA is dependent on dev and our prod is dependent on QA, right? So once our deployment is done on dev region, then our QA is dependent on this dev. So let me show you. You can see pre-deployment condition, right? Before we deploy it to the QA region, it is going to it is basically dependent on the dev region, right? You can see on the dev region. And the same thing when we are going for deploying anything on prod. So on the prod, it is depending on the QA, right? You can see. So automatically it has been taken care by this Azure DevOps. So our pipeline is ready. Now we are going to see. So if I tell you all these steps we have done, and we have already created our Azure App Service, and which we are going to deploy our application, in particular Azure App Service for Dev App, for QA, and for Cloud. So something like that in Azure App Service. For Dev, you can see for this Dev region, we are going to host our application in this Dev App Service. Similarly, for this QA app service, basically for this QA region, we are going to deploy our application in this QA app service. Similarly, for this production region, we are going to host our application in prod app service, in this prod app service, right? And which is already running, and that is up. So let's go and let's take a demo. Let me show you a demo how all things are going to be happen how all the things are going to be happen automatically, right? So now let me go back to the code. Now let's say I'm going to make some changes in my local. Let's say we can say our pipeline completed, right? Save the changes. Now let's say we did some changes in my local, and now what we will do, now we are going to push this change to my Azure repo, right? So let's go back to the command prompt. Let's clear the screen. Now what we are going to do, basically we are going to push, we can say we are going to commit our local changes to the Azure repo, right? So getting my point. So for that, first of all, let's check our status. So it should show us that our branch master, let's wait. Yeah, so you can see your branch is up to date, right? Now we are going to stage the content locally first, right? So whatever we have done the changes in my local application, right? So once I'm done with my local changes, and when I have tested that everything is running fine in my local application, then we need to push our local code to the Azure repo, right? So for that, first of all, we need to stage the content in the local first. For that, we do have command git add. Now by this command, it is going to stage the content first of all in our local git, right? And now we are going to commit. Let's say give it a meaningful name. Let's say this time pipeline completed, right? Pipeline completed, right? So now I'm pressing the enter key. So now what will happen? It is basically going to commit the changes in my local git, right? In my local system git, right? Because in the local, when we are working with the git, our local repository is created in our local system, right? Now once we are done, now we are going to push it to the main repository in the Azure DevOps. So command is git push origin master, right? So you can see. So now look it carefully. The moment I press enter key, then what's going to happen? Automatically it will push my code to Azure repo, right? So all the changes which I did in my local, I'm going to push my all changes, or we can say I'm going to commit my changes to my Azure repo. This. So let me divide the screen so that you can see both of the screen parallelly. What's going to happen? So now you can see this is our CMD command line, and this is our Azure DevOps, right? And now let me click on the pipeline first of all. So let's click on this pipeline, right? So now what's going to happen? Let me click on this run. So initially we have two pipeline which we triggered earlier. First it was manually done, and this one we did it automatically. It was triggered, right? If you remember, right? Now what I'm going to do, the moment I press enter key from my keyboard, so it is going to commit my code, or we can say it is going to push my code from my local to this Azure repo, and this Azure repo DevOps, right, in this repository, right? And once our source code is available in this repository, automatically it will trigger the build pipeline. So it's going to trigger automatically this build pipeline. And then once this build pipeline is triggered, and once it is successfully done, output is generated by the build pipeline in the form of artifacts, then it will automatically trigger it's automatically going to trigger release pipeline, this one, right? And in the release pipeline, it will automatically it's going to deploy on the dev region, then to the QA, then to the prod. So let's look into the picture, right? So now I'm pressing the enter key. So the moment I press enter key, so let's wait for a couple of seconds. In the background, it is going to perform some process. So let's wait. So you can see, so it has committed our code to this particular URL, to DevOps, to this particular organization, and to this organization under this project, right? Now let me close this CMD, and now let's go back to pipeline, and you can see immediately load one new run, it automatically comes. I have done nothing. So let's click on this button. Now you can see pipeline completed. Our new pipeline has started just now. You can see just now our new pipeline has started. Now let me click on this pipeline. So everything is now going to be happen automatically, right? We have configured each and everything. Now you can see agent job 1, it's in running status. Now in the background, our build pipeline has been started. Now it is going to initialize job. Now then it will check out all the source code which is available in the Azure repo, which we have just now pushed from my local. Then after checking out the code, it will perform restore, then build, then publish. You can see all these commands are going to be performed in a background by the DevOps automatically. Now you can see one artifact has been produced, right? And when we click on this, our artifact has been produced in the form of publish content file. Now when we click on this release, automatically our CD pipeline will get triggered. You can see release 1 has been started. So we haven't done anything, right? We just configured. It's a one-time activity, and all things are going to be happen automatically. Now CD pipeline has been triggered. Now when I click on this, now you can see continuous deployment is going to happen, and now in the dev region our application is being deployed, right? So on the basis of this artifact, because our build pipeline was done successfully, it was triggered successfully, then it automatically trigger the release pipeline, and now it is in under process. Now it is deploying our application in the dev region. So now you can see it is deploying in Azure App Service for the dev region. So let's wait for a couple of seconds, and so you can see how beautifully it was done. It's just a one-time activity, right? We need to configure for the first time, and later on when we used to make any changes in our local, once we push our code from my local to the repo, then automatically it's going to trigger your build pipeline, then automatically it's going to trigger your release pipeline, right? So let's wait. So it's going to deploy in Azure App Service. So you can see how beautifully it was done, and nowadays most of the companies are going with this Azure DevOps for having CI/CD pipeline. So let's wait. Sometimes it works very fast, and sometimes it takes some time because as it is a free account. So that's why, yeah, we can see now our deployment has been done successfully, but it is not going to deploy in queue region automatically. Why so? Because we have applied one check over here that our development manager will come, and until and unless he will not approve it, it's not going to deploy to the QA region, right? Getting my point? So before we go to the next stage, so let's go to the dev region, and let's check that our application is running fine or not. So as I told you, for this dev region, if I click on this dev region, let me tell you one thing. for this dev region, I show you that for this dev region we deploy our application to this app service, right? When we were earlier configuring, right? So let's click on this app service tab, and now we have hosted our application into this Azure app service for dev region. Now let's copy this URL, and now let's paste it to the URL. Now what we can check, so what we made changes in our local, we make changes in local this pipeline completed. So let's see into the picture. So we can see our site is working fine, our dev region deployment done, and we are able to navigate to all the pages. You can see welcome to CI/CD session, pipeline completed. That's what we change in our local, right? And we push our code to the repo, and automatically pipeline was triggered, and automatically your deployment has been done to dev region, right? And we are able to navigate all the pages. And in the URL we can see your dev, this is your dev region, right? So we can say that our deployment has been deployed successfully, our application has been hosted successfully on this dev region in this Azure app service, right? Now let's go back to the pipeline. Now it's waiting for approval for the next stage, right? So the moment I will press, the moment I click on this approve button, automatically it's going to promote the same changes to the QA region, right? So let's look into the picture. So one more time I'm telling, until and unless we will not give approval on this stage, so it's not going to deploy in the QA region, right? So our, let's say our development manager will come and he will see that okay, each and everything is working fine. Now he will click on this approve button, and now if you want to add some comment, he can add, he or she can add some comments and click on this approve button. So the moment I click this approve, so you see automatically it's going to deploy in the QA region. You can see in the QA it is in queue, and now it is waiting in hosted windows. So it's waiting for the, now you can see our process has been started. Now first of all it will initialize the job, then it will download the artifacts from this site, and after downloading the artifacts are nothing, these are the published content files when we used to publish the application, right? And after downloading artifacts, it is going to deploy the application in Azure App Service for QA. And by the time it is in under process, it is deploying in QA. So let's go back to Azure Cloud, and under App Service, let's go back to this QA App Service. So we have already configured, and let's copy the URL for QA. So we can copy the URL from here, and now let's go back to pipeline. Let's see, it is in under process. So it is in under, so it's basically deploying. So let's go and let's try. Let's see what it is going to display. Now it is our QA URL. So let's see, our pipeline has completed. So it is still in process, but now you can see our QA side is also up, and that is running fine, right? And you can see this is our URL QA, our app service name URL, right? QA, and our all the navigation menus are working fine. That means our QA region is also up, and that is working fine. Now let's go back to the pipeline, and you can see our deployment has been done on QA also, but on QA it is waiting for approval to get it deployed to the next stage. So until and unless QA manager will not come and he or she will not give a sign off or a kind of approval, it's not going to deploy on the production region, right? So now you can see our dev is also up, dev URL, and our QA site is also up, our QA region is also up. You can see pipeline completed. Now what we are going to perform, now we are going to deploy it to the production region. But if you remember that we have applied some manual intervention. So let's say the moment let's say QA manager will come, and the moment he or she will click on this approve button, or he or she will give sign off, it's not going to deploy automatically in production. First of all, it will it will wait for the manual intervention. If you remember, we have applied, because as I told you that production is a very critical stage, so we cannot rely on the QA manager. So let's say QA manager is giving approval, and now on the production vision also there must be some person, let's say having some person with high authority, having with higher authority, he or she will come and he or she will check, okay, everything is running fine till QA, and QA manager has given approval, has given sign off. Now he or she then give approval for production deployment, right? So let's click on this approve button, and the moment I click on approve, so see it's going to deploy in production, but it is waiting for the manual intervention, right? You can see it is waiting for the manual intervention. So after QA, it's not like that after giving approval by the QA manager, it's going to deploy directly in the production. No, it's not like that. On production, uh, a person having with higher authority, he or she will come and he will give sign off, or he will give approval. Once he or she will give approval, then automatically deployment is going to happen on production region. So let's click on this button. Now let's give it approval. Now you can see, as soon as we click on the manual intervention approval, our deployment has been started in production region also, right? So by the time it is deploying in the production, so let's go to the Azure App Service, and let's copy our Azure this app service URL for production. This is our prod URL, and now let's copy, and now let's run the application in the browser. Let's go back to the pipeline. So the same thing it is going to perform. Firstly, it will initialize the job, then downloading the artifact, and then after downloading the artifact, it's going to deploy in the production Azure App Service. So right now, this is our app service URL. Now you can see it is because it is in process. So what it is saying, your web app is running and waiting for your content. So since it is in under process, you can see for deployment, it is still in under process. So that's why it is displaying the message to the user, your web app is running and waiting for your content to be published, right? So let's wait, and once deployment is done successfully on the production region, then we can check the same thing for production URL. So now it is deploying in Azure App Service. Which Azure App Service? This production Azure App Service. You can see these are the list of Azure App Service. This is for dev deployment, this is for QA deployment, and this is for production region deployment, right? So now let's go back to the pipeline. Let's see. So let's wait for a couple of seconds. So as it is a prod, it will not take much time. It should get it done fast. Sometimes it works really very fast. Yeah, now you can see on production server it is succeeded. Now our deployment has been completed on production server also. Now let's go back to the production server. So we have already copied the URL from where? From this Azure Portal, from this Azure App Service, we have copied this URL, right? And now let's hit again. I'm clicking. Let's reload, and now we would be able to see that our application is running fine or not. Yes, so we can see our application is running fine in production also. We are able to navigate all the pages, header and footer also, right? And we can see CI/CD session pipeline completed. So whatever we did changes in my local, right, in this file, so we are able to deploy it in all the region. In all the region, this is your dev region. In the URL, you can see dev. Then we have QA, right, and then we have prod, right. So in all the regions, our application is running fine. Our application is up, and that's working fine, right. So this is how we can create our CI/CD pipeline, and you have you can imagine that how beautifully it was done. We haven't done anything. What we did, let me tell you the steps once more. What we did, the moment I let's say we did some changes in my local code, and after making some changes in my local code, what I did with the help of this command prompt, I pushed my local code to the Azure repo. Once I committed my code to this Azure repo, so once our source code is available, then it's going to trigger automatically build pipeline, right? And if I click on this build pipeline, you can see now we have these three pipelines, right? The last one we triggered this one. You can see the time just 14 minutes ago. So the last pipeline, it was triggered automatically by the name pipeline completed, right? And once we trigger the pipeline, so automatically all the things used to happen in a background automatically, right? So once our build pipeline is successfully generated, so automatically then it's going to trigger this release pipeline, right? So once our source code is available in your repository, it's going to trigger automatically your build pipeline, and then it's going to trigger your release pipeline. And under release section, it's going to automatically going to deploy your application in dev QA prod. You can see in this stage, right? And when I click on this particular CD pipeline, that is basically your CD pipeline, you can see we deployed our application in all the region in dev, QA and production. But the condition is that on each and every stage, or we can say on each and every region, we have applied one condition that we need to give approval on each and every stage. On dev, we can say development region or development manager will come. Then after development manager, our QA manager will come. And then after QA manager, once he or she will give sign off, then the same changes are going to promote it to the production. But on the production, we have given kind of manual intervention, right? And on the basis of that manual intervention, once we got approval, then it is going to automatically deploy in production region. So you see how beautifully it was done. So it's basically a one-time activity. We have to configure for the very first time. Once we configure our pipeline, once we created our CI pipeline, then our CD pipeline, then all the things are going to be happen automatically. We don't have to do anything. Once we push our code from my local to this Azure repo, then all the things are going to be happen automatically in the background. Your build pipeline, then your CD pipeline, and then it's going to deploy, it's going to host your application in dev, vision, QA and production. Depending on that, on each and every stage, we need to give approval or kind of sign off, and on the basis of sign off, it's going to deploy into the next stage, right? And we have seen in all these app service, we have deployed our application, and our application is running fine. And this is dev, this is QA, and this is our production vision, right? So that was all about your CI/CD pipeline. And if you remember, we completed our all steps. We created our Asp.NET Core application, then we push our code to the Azure repository, and once our source code is available in this repo, then automatically it's going to trigger your build pipeline. And once our build pipeline is done successfully, so once our artifact is generated by the build pipeline, then automatically it's going to trigger release pipeline, which is this one, right? And in this release pipeline, automatically it's going to host the application in all the multiple stages, depending on that how many stages we want to create. So as of now, we have created dev, QA, prod. We can have some more like staging or something like that, right? So this is all for your CI/CD pipeline, and how we can configure how we can create basically CI/CD pipeline in this Azure DevOps. So nowadays in the industry, it has become a trend that most of the organizations are going with this Azure DevOps, and they are going for the CI/CD pipeline with the help of Azure DevOps, and they used to deploy it. Yeah, one more thing. It's not mandatory that we can deploy our application in the app service. We can deploy our application, or we can say we can host our application in the app service also, in the virtual machine also, right? let's say we want to host our application in AWS, in Google Cloud, in IBM Cloud, or it could be any other platform. Let's say we want to host our application in Docker, in Kubernetes, right? So depending on your choice. So that's depend on our choice on what kind of platform we are going to deploy this. So as of now, I have taken app service. So I have deployed the application in this Azure app service. So our all application is running fine, and our pipeline is also working fine. So that's it for this session. So if you have any question or any doubts, so you please let me know. I'll let you know in the later on, right? So that is all.